Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare
So good
Krishna,
to see
Hare Krishna, Krishna.
all so smiling faces, fulgent. So nice.
Hare
How's
Krishna,
everyone doing?
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
How was the Ram Navami celebration?
Very excellent, excellent,
Oh yeah? Tell us
excellent.
more. What about anyone else? How was it in Vancouver?
Vancouver is very
It was
nice.
good, Prabhu. It was very nice. Yes.
That's good. That's good.
This temple
And
program
what,
is
what
very good.
about you, Pitashri? What about you?
We actually did Ram Lila on Zoom.
Oh,
So we had about 20 plus participants in their homes and a number of pastimes of Lord Ram. It was really fun, a lot of fun. What about you, Radhika? How was it?
It was good. I didn't do anything super special, but it was very sweet.
That's nice. Good. Good for you.
Here she is.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Madhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
We found out that we have a bunch of stars in Toronto. You know, wonderful piece of acting and dialogue speaking. It was really a lot of fun.
Was it arranged by Bhakti Mark Swami or
Oh, we have a new director.
We have a director, we have
New
producer,
director, producer.
script writer,
Script-
director.
Starts with the script writer and then direction and everything. Acting also.
Yeah, it was a lot
Very
of fun.
wonderful. Yes.
Okay, so once again, welcome. Who I see? Mary Mataji, Hare Krishna, Rampriya Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Navneet Prabhu,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Vallabhari Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Ashok Krishnadas, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Paramjit Mataji, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Poonam Mataji, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Madhu Mataji, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Amrita Mataji, Sunana Mataji, Hare Krishna, Nikunj Madhvi Mataji, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare
So
Krishna.
nice to see all these effulgent faces. Nandapatni Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Okay, so let's do Hare Krishna, Gautam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Let's put the Pranami mantra on and let's put the speaker view, share screen, Pranami mantra. Okay, somebody who has not done it yet, would you like to? Okay, Mataji, Madhu Mataji, Hari Bol. Please do.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Prabhu, can I?
Madhu Mataji raised her hand, so let her do it first, please. Next week you can do it.
Okay, Prabhu. No worries. Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada Guru Pranami Mantra. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा
कृपा
सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nicely done.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, so before I start, we have one of the regular attendees of this class, Shama Mohini Mataji. Last night, her son developed some appendix problem, and so he had an appendicitis operation, and there were some complications. So I would like to ask you all to join me in chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra 3 times to pray for his quick recovery. Please join me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, sir. Mataji, Hare Krishna. Okay, so today, a special class. We are going to be glorifying Lord Ram. His real appearance day was yesterday, but because we meet only on Thursdays, we're going to do a happy belated birthday celebration of Lord Ram. Of course, you know that birthday is not the right term, but just to use the colloquial term, we say birthday. It's appearance day of Lord Ram. Okay, so before I start, I wanted to make a comment, and that was, if you look at Srimad Bhagavatam, 12 cantos, 18,000 verses, and I'm not sure, but certainly more than 200, 300 chapters, and only 2 chapters dedicated to Lord Ram and his pastimes. So sometimes people say, and I've heard them say, that Lord Ram may not be as important as Lord Krishna. Or, we worship only Lord Krishna and not Lord Ram, and on and on and on. So I just wanted to mention a couple of points. One was that right in the beginning of 10th chapter, 9th canto, which is the beginning of the pastimes of Lord Ram, Shukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj that I'm going to do Ram Lila or pastimes of Lord Ram very, very briefly. And he said, because I know you have heard the pastimes of Lord Ram many, many times already. And it's true, certainly for people who are from India, basically we grow up in India hearing the pastimes of Lord Ram. If you're in North India, it's Valmiki Ramayana and Ramcharitmanas, which is Tulsi Ramayana. If you're in South India, it's Valmiki Ramayana and a number of other versions of Ramayana. It doesn't matter. The point is that everybody has heard so many pastimes of Lord Ram all their lives in India. So Shukadeva Goswami is saying, just like everybody else in India, you have also heard this pastime so many times. So given that we have very small amount of time, I don't want to take too much time describing the pastimes you've heard so many times already. So let me just briefly do it. So that's the one point I wanted to make, that even Shukadeva Goswami is saying, there's lots of them, they're very important, but just because you've heard it so many times and we are short of time, we're going to do this briefly only. So that's one point. The second point is, briefly does not, before I go there, in the age of Kali, there are three incarnations of Lord Krishna. That incarnation includes Lord Krishna also, by the way, that we are recommended to worship. Would anybody like to guess who are those three incarnations of Krishna that we are supposed to worship in the age of Kali?
Lord Krishna himself,
Krishna himself, yes.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji,
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya, yes. And
And Lord Ram.
Lord Ram,
Harinam.
exactly. Lord, sorry?
Harinam.
Hari Ram. What's Hari Ram?
Krishna's names.
Harinam.
Oh, Hari Nam. Sorry, I heard Hari Ram. Okay, yes. So it's Lord Ram, is Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Krishna. And Damodar Prabhu is right that the name, holy name of the Lord is non-different from the Lord anyway. And in the age of Kali, chanting is considered the best process. But we're chanting the names of these three Supreme Personalities of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Ram, and Lord Krishna. Even in the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The word Ram has different meanings. One, of course, one who does Raman, enjoys with Radharani, that's Lord Krishna himself. And then Ram, which also means the one who gives pleasure, that's Lord Ramchandra. And then sometimes also refers to Lord Balaram. Srila Prabhupada says that those three are the various meanings depending upon the context of the word Ram. So once again proving the importance that Lord Ram is non-different from Krishna. And then finally we go to other authority, which is Lord Brahma, which is the one book that he spoke that is written in his prayers. What book contains Lord Brahma's prayers?
Brahma Samhita.
Brahma Samhita, very good, Radhika. So, Brahma Samhita says in verse 39, chapter 5, well, there's only one chapter available, that's chapter 5. It says, Ramadi Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtan. Nana Avataram Karot, Nana Avatar Karot Bhunesh Kintu, Krishna Swam Sambhavat Paramahapamaniyo, Govindam Adi Purusham, Tamaham Bhajami. So he says, Lord Brahma is saying that Ram Adi, Lord Ram and other many incarnations are taken by Lord Krishna himself. So they are non-different from Krishna. And then he says, of course, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead and he appears as his own incarnation. That Krishna or Govinda, I'm offering my humble obeisances to. So once again he's saying Lord Ram and Lord Krishna are non-different. So in other words, Lord Ram is also Vishnu Tattva. It's a very special incarnation or appearance of Lord Vishnu. He's also known as Lila Avatar. If you recall the presentation from a few months ago, we talked about different types of incarnation, and one of the types was Lila Avatar. The one that does many pastimes. So Lord Ram certainly has many pastimes, some of which we'll discuss tonight that he performed. So I also want to give you another context, and I'm going to share the screen one more time and show you a slide that I've seen before, but just to kind of remind you. Hopefully this slide looks familiar to most of you. We talked about creation, and we said that Lord Krishna expands from his left side as Srimati Radharani and from his right side as Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram expands into the first Lord Narayan, who has the expansions known as the first quadruple expansions, which is Vasudev. Everybody understands the difference between Vasudev and Vasudev, right? I just corrected myself, so I want to make sure you understand and see the difference. Who would like to tell me what is the difference between Vasudev and Vasudev?
Vasudev is Krishna and Vasudev is Krishna's father.
Very good. Yes, exactly. Vasudev, Devaki were married, and they are the parents of Vasudev Krishna. So this is Vasudev Krishna. This Sankarshan, which is Balaram. Then Pradyumna and Aniruddha. These are the four, the first quadruple expansion, who appear both in Dwarka Lila as well as Ayodhya Lila. So, who would like to guess? Who does
As well
Vasudeva?
as in Ayodhya.
I'm sorry?
You said as well as in Ayodhya also.
Correct. Correct. So, in Ayodhya, who would like to guess? Who does Vasudeva appear as?
Lord Ram.
Lord
Lord Ram. Yes, absolutely. And Sankarshan?
Lakshman.
Lakshman. Lakshman.
Pradyumna?
Bharat.
Bharat.
Bharat. Yes. And
Shatrughan.
Niruddha?
Shatrughan.
Shatrughan.
Shatrugna. So the point I was trying to make with this slide was that all four brothers, Lord Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrugna, they are all Vishnu Tattvas. Okay, none of them is Jiva Tattva. They are all Vishnu Tattvas, non-different from Lord Krishna. Okay, they have just taken different forms for the sake of pastimes. Okay? Now, so yes, they are non-different, but Lord Chaitanya had the philosophy. What was the name of the philosophy that Lord Chaitanya espoused? Anybody? Something to do-
Achintya Veda Ved.
Very good, Sonam. Achintya Bheda Bhed, which means inconceivable, different, and simultaneously non-different.
Non-different.
So yes, as many times as I have already said that Lord Ram and Lord Krishna are not different, but there are some differences. So I'd like to discuss those as well before I get into the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So to start with, Lord Ram is playing the role of a perfect human being. That's why it's called Purushottam. Purush means a person, Uttam means the best,
Best of all.
topmost. So he's the topmost, which is above everyone else, personality who's taken the form of a human being to appear this time. But he's not, Lord Ram's not known just as Purushottam Ram. There's another word used before the word Purushottam when we describe Lord Ram.
Lila Purushottam Ram.
Maryada.
One name, Maryada Purushottam. So,
Maryada Purushottam.
so Lila Purushottam is also a correct answer, but in the context that I am saying the word Maryada. So he's known as Maryada Purushottam Ram. So why? What does the word Maryada mean? Any guesses?
Dharam ki maryada ki.
No, but what's the
Respect. Respect.
respect? Okay. What else?
Maryada is within limits, within Maryada.
Within
Within
limits.
the
Okay.
within
Yes.
the limits of all the regulations and
Strict about rules and regulations around.
Yes. Yes. So all of you are giving the right answer. And so just one second. Okay. So Maryada basically means, as you said, within limits, within boundaries, the honor, the etiquette. That's another meaning of the word Maryada. Religious principles, traditions, all those are the meanings of the word Maryada. So Maryada Purushottam Ram means that personality of Supreme Personality of Godhead who is come here in the form of a human being who is going to be bound by tradition, religious principles, etiquette, and the boundaries that he will draw for himself and for everybody else. So that's Maryada Purushottam Ram. Now, I have to ask you, comparing with Lord Krishna, what kind of Maryada did Lord Krishna observe?
Krishna said,
Lila Purushottam.
Sorry?
Lila Purushottam.
No. What kind of Maryada did he observe?
एक पत्नी व्रत
Sorry?
एक पत्नी
Lord Krishna, ek patni?
No, sorry, Lord Ram.
I'm talking about Lord Krishna. So basically,
No
he didn't
Maryada.
observe many, if any. Like he stole, right? He had so many so-called girlfriends, right? He's even known to kind of lie to his mother. I didn't eat butter. I didn't eat soil.
Yeah.
Right? When clearly he has. So he
Because
wasn't very much
why-
into it. So
He
that's,
also broke his
sorry,
vow.
I'm
He
sorry,
also broke his vow.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
He also broke his vow.
He also broke his vow. That's right, exactly right. He also broke his vow. And we'll come back to that point, Mataji. Thank you for pointing it out. So that's one point. The second point is, who has ever seen Lord Krishna stand straight and looking sober? He never did,
No.
right? Kathaganam natyam gamanapi, as Brahma Samhita says, that when he walked, he was dancing. He never walked straight. His hands will be going like this, and his feet will be going both directions, and he'll be dancing and twirling and everything. He never walked straight.
And legs is
And he's always crooked, right? Tribhangi.
naughty boy.
Naughty boy, yes, Mataji. Tribhanga lalitam niyat prakasham. That's Brahma
He
Samhita.
understood the ways of the world.
I'm sorry, Mataji?
He understood rightly the ways of this world.
Yeah, he sure did. He sure did. I mean, and he showed that in his nature, right? So that was the other point, that Krishna was different. Another point Krishna was different was when it came to his pastimes in Vrindavan. What did he emphasize? His sweetness or his godness?
Sweetness.
Okay, you all agreeing with my wife who said sweetness. So thank you.
Sweetness.
So for Krishna, the sweetness was more emphasized, and he considered that more important than his godness, and therefore all his pastimes were adjusted accordingly. That's why he was stealing. That's why he was telling a lie, just to emphasize his sweetness and to enjoy the sweetness of his devotees who were reciprocating. Lord Ram, on the other hand, very sober. And for him, just godness, that's more important. You don't hear any example of Lord Ram, doing any pastimes like stealing and things like that. Even his childhood pastimes, the closest he ever got was when his mother would come to pick him up, he'll start running and he'll laugh. Or there was a crow that would come, that was actually Kag Bhushandi Maharaj. He would come to his courtyard to play with him, and Lord Ram will chase him, and or sometimes be afraid and run away from him. That was about the extent of it. The mellows. Lord Krishna showed and enjoyed all 5 mellows. What are the 5 mellows? Anybody?
Neutrality.
Vatsalya
I'm sorry.
Bhav.
Dasya Bhav, and what else?
Vatsalya Bhav.
Satya, Madhurya, Vatsalya.
Okay, right.
Sakhya bhav.
Yes. So Shant.
Madhurya Sakhya.
So
Vatsalya.
Shant is neutrality, right? Dasya is servitorship. Sakhya is friendship. Vatsalya is parenthood or parentship. And Madhurya is conjugal relationship. And he enjoyed in all cases. Lord Ram didn't really enjoy all those. Like, so for example, let's take the Sakhiras. It is not that he did not have any friends. Sugriva was his friend. To some degree, Hanumanji was his friend. But look at their behavior. When they did hug Lord Ram, first they offered obeisances. Then they got up, and it was like hugging is like shoulders are touching. That's about it. Not like Lord Krishna, when his friends will climb over him, all over his body. They'll kick him. They'll jump on his back and wrap their feet around his body. They'll feed him flour instead of the gulab jamun. And then laugh at him. They'll make fun of him. Right? That Sakha was never there. Even the Madhuri Ras, conjugal mellow. Sure, he had a wife. He loved her very much. But we don't have the naughty games. We don't have the teasing. Just like Vakuntha, Lakshmi ji is in Madhuri Ras, but there's no teasing, there's no games, there's no playing, there's very serious conversations. Right? And we all know what Krishna did. So, another difference. Um, there's one other difference that I'll come back to in a second. So I'll go back to the point that Lord Ram came as a human being. What was the reason? Of course, there was one reason that Ravan had asked for benedictions from Lord Brahma about becoming immortal. Just like Brahma told Hiranyakashipu, I'm not immortal, how can I make you immortal? Lord Brahma told Ravana the same thing, in which case Ravan also, like Hiranyakashipu, tried to cover all the angles. I don't want to be killed by a bird, I don't want to be killed by an animal, I don't want to be killed by this and that. And Lord Brahma said, what about humans? He said, who cares about humans? They're insignificant, I'm not going to worry about them. So Lord Ram said, okay, fine, I'll come as human. And I'll kill you and I can still honor the benediction from Lord Brahma. So that was one reason. But there was one even more important reason. And I'm going to share my, well, it's not my philosophy, but I really believe in this philosophy, which is let's see how I say it. One can be a perfect human being without being a devotee. And we have many examples of that. But one cannot be a perfect devotee without being a perfect human being. Would you agree with that?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, could you repeat once?
Yes.
Please repeat.
You can be a perfect human being without being a devotee. But you cannot be a perfect devotee without being a perfect human being.
Second one is okay.
I'm sorry?
Second one is okay. You cannot be a perfect devotee without a perfect human.
Perfect human being.
Right. So therefore, Lord Ram said, I will first show the world how to be a perfect human being. And this is why he appears before Lord Krishna. So now you all understand how to become and what is a perfect human being. Now you can be a perfect devotee, which is what Lord Krishna shows. So Lord Ram appears to show us how to be a perfect human being. Lord Krishna appears to show us how to be a perfect devotee. Right?
Yep.
So Lord Krishna appeared to give us bhakti and to show us what bhakti is all about by his interactions with the residents of Vrindavan. The Lord Ram, on the other hand, appeared to teach us what Maryada is all about. Which is, you cannot be a perfect human being without observing Maryada. Again, just to remind you, this is the etiquette, the honor, the tradition, the limits, the religious principles, etc., etc. Without them, you cannot be a perfect human being. The do's and the don'ts are very important. The rules make a difference. Rules matter. I'm talking about the Vedic rules. Right? So Lord Ram showed how to do that so you can become a bhakta, and Lord Krishna showed what bhakti is about, what being a bhakta is about, what is a bhakta. And then Lord Chaitanya came to show how to do what Lord Krishna has done and shown us what bhakta is about. So how do you be a bhakta? That Lord Krishna said, this is what you should be. So that's the sequence. Okay? Now, another difference, and probably the biggest difference, is the distinction between the etiquette and love. Would you agree that sometimes etiquette requires that love is not so important? Because those boundaries, those limitations have to be crossed, then love is there. Right? So this is what I'm going to explain. I'm going to take two examples. One from the pastimes of Lord Ram and one from the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Now this is with apologies to the people from Toronto who have heard this before. Only few weeks ago I discussed this, but this is one of those such beautiful things that I'm sure you won't mind hearing it again. So, what happened during the pastimes of Lord Ram? When Kaikeyi was, what's the word, misled, miscounseled, misguided by her hunchback servant. What was her name?
Mathura. Mantra.
I got it. So, so Manthara, who convinced Kaikeyi that she should not agree to King Dashrath's announcement of the coronation of Ram to the throne of Ayodhya. Rather, she should insist that her son Bharat becomes the king. And not only that, ask for Ram to be exiled for 14 years. And I was listening to a class, and I'm not sure whether it was Sarvabhaum Prabhu or Amarendra Prabhu, but they said one of the traditions in those days was that if somebody came back within 12 years, then they could ask for whatever they gave up back, because still they are right. But if they were absent for more than 12 years, then they lost all rights. So Manthara's logic was that if Ram goes away for 14 years, he cannot come back and demand the throne back, because originally that was his right. That was the first point. The second point was she felt that in 14 years, people of Ayodhya will get used to the rule by King Bharat. They'll develop just as much love for him, and therefore they will not care if Ram comes back and whether he gets the throne back or not. So that was the logic. So she convinced Kaikeyi to go ask Dashrath for those two things. And she said, you remember one time you saved your husband's life and he promised to give you 2 benedictions. So this is the time you go and ask for those 2 benedictions, because at that time you had said you will ask for them when you need it. So he owes you 2 benedictions. Having thus convinced Kaikeyi, which by the way, I'm just going to digress just a little bit. Kaikeyi loved Ram more than she loved Bharat. It was just like the Krishna Lila, where all the mothers in Vrindavan, they loved Krishna more than their own sons. So this was the same situation here. Kaikeyi loved Ram more than she loved her own son Bharat. She was not interested in doing this. But here is what happened. When King Dashrath announced that Ram will become the king, one person got very worried. Any guesses?
Mantra.
No. Huh?
Ramchandraji.
No.
Lord Brahma.
No.
No.
Getting closer though.
Can you repeat the question?
The demigods, because they were afraid that he wouldn't be able to kill Ram.
Yes, Radhika, you're absolutely right.
Prabhu, please repeat the question.
Yeah, please.
Let me pat Radhika on the back first, then I'll repeat the question. Well done, Radhika. Okay. So the question was, when King Dashrath announced that next morning he is going to coronate Lord Ram on the throne of Ayodhya, and he's going to give up his kingship and give it to Ram. Everybody in Ayodhya was very happy, but there was one personality which was very unhappy, other than Manthara, who was very unhappy. And Radhika said the demigods, particularly Indra, which is the correct answer. So Indra and the demigods got extremely worried. So why did they get worried? Anybody?
Yes. Who will kill Ravana?
Ravan.
Yeah, Namrata Mata, you were saying?
Who will kill Ravan?
Yes, my wife was saying the same thing.
So, that's right.
Yeah, no, you're right. So the demigods had made very special prayers to Lord Brahma, who had gone to Lord Vishnu, say this Ravana and other demons are becoming a real burden on earth, causing all sorts of havoc in the universe. So please do something. And Lord Vishnu said, don't worry, I'll appear as Ram and I'll take care of it. So when Indra and the demigods heard that Manthara was going to counsel Kaikeyi to not let Ram become the king, I'm sorry, I didn't say it right. When King Dasharatha announced that he wants Ram to be the king, they were afraid that now Ram will get busy governing Ayodhya and he'll forget all about Ravan, and then Ravan will keep harassing us. So it was in their interest. So they ran back to Brahma. I said, Father, help us. And they said, my dear children, what's the problem? I said, the problem is that Lord Ram is going to become busy. He's taking care of his kingdom and his people, and he'll forget about Ravan, killing Ravan. So please do something so he does not get to the throne. So Brahma said, what do you want me to do? And they said, ask your wife Saraswati, get to sit on the tongue of Manthara and give her this bad advice about Ram not becoming the king and Bharat becoming the king and Ram going to the forest, and somehow change Kaikeyi's mind to accept Manthara's advice. So this was their plan. So that's why Kaikeyi, who loved Ram so much, got convinced. And basically the scenario was that she went, and this is according to Tulsi Rama and Ramcharitmanas. The reason I mention that is there's about 18 different authentic versions of Ramayana. And some stories are different in different versions. So it is possible that some of you on this Zoom call may have heard a different version. So bear with me. I'm just giving you one version. Okay, so having convinced Manthara having convinced Kaikeyi, Kaikeyi lied down there used to be a special room those days, believe it or not. A special room that is known as Kopa Bhavan. Kopa means angry. So the queen would go to that room when they were angry with their husband, the king. And then they will not do makeup that day and not wear their sari properly and, lie on the floor, not on the bed, in a pose that, kind of on the side or on their back or whatever, and cry. Well, Dasharatha was very attached to Kaikeyi. So, not knowing anything, he started missing her and said, he went to her room, she wasn't there. She started looking for her everywhere, and somebody said, my lord, she's in the Kopa Bhavan. And Dasharatha almost fainted just upon hearing that. Oh my God, now what am I going to face today? So he entered the Kopa Bhavan and saw Kaikeyi lying down on the floor, crying, no makeup, nothing and all that. So he asked her, what's the matter, darling? And she wouldn't answer. He kept asking, and finally she said, you promised me 2 benedictions, you have not given them yet. And he said, what's the problem with that? You said that you will ask at appropriate time. Ask me anytime you want and I'll give it to you. If you want my life, I'll give it to you. No problem. So she got up, but she said, are you sure you want to think about that a couple of times before you say it? He said, no, I promise you, whatever you ask, I will give. So she said, I want my son Bharat to be the king. And he said, oh, if that's the only problem, I'm sure Ram will not mind. No problem, given. What's the second one? And she said, and I want Ram to go to the forest, be exiled for 14 years.
Oh my God.
King Dasharatha almost fainted. And actually he did faint. After some time, he came to his senses and he was crying and crying. You haven't seen a man cry like that ever before, or since, for that matter. Anyway, finally he settled down and he said to Kaikeyi, do you realize you're not asking for me to send Ram to the forest? You're asking me to give up my body. He said, I love him so much that I will not be able to live even for 2 days in his absence. I'll certainly die as soon as he leaves. Within a day or two, I will die. But her mind had been, twisted and polluted and contaminated, and all those bad things had happened to the mind or the brain or whatever. And she said, no, this is what I want. So here's the point I'm making. Now, Dashrath had two choices. He could keep his word and agree. Or he could say, I don't care for my word. I love Ram so much, I'll become a liar. I'll go to hell for not keeping my word. But I'm not going to let Ram go to the forest. I cannot survive without him. I cannot see him suffer in the forest. He's a prince. His body is so soft that his servants are scared to touch the sole of his lotus feet. His body is softer than butter. How can I let him go to the forest with all those fierce animals, ferocious animals, and all those kind of things, and the thorns on the way, and what will he eat, and on and on and on? He said he could have said, "I'm not saying no, yes to you. So I go to hell. I go to hell. If the whole world for the rest of the eternity blames me for not keeping my word, so be it. I don't care." He could have done that, but he did not do that. What did he say? And I'll chant from Ramcharitmanas. He said, Raghukul Riti Sada Chal Aayi, Pran Jaye Par Vachan Na Jayi. He said, I belong to the Raghu dynasty. Raghu was his father's father, grandfather. I belong to Raghu dynasty. And our Maryada, our tradition is that we never go back on our words. So knowing full well that I will die, I will say yes to you. And here's the point. For him, Maryada trumped his love for his son. It was more important for Dashrath to maintain his Maryada, to keep his word and die, and show his love for Ram and say, my love for Ram means more than anything to me. People want to laugh at me. People want to point fingers at me for not keeping my word. So be it. I don't care. My Ram is going to stay with me. But he didn't do that because Maryada was more important. Now, I'm going to tell you past time for Lord Krishna's past time. And then you can compare and contrast. Imagine the day of Diwali. Or was it one day after Diwali? I always get one day after Diwali, I'm sorry. One day after Diwali. Lord Krishna, who's 7 years old, he is suddenly noticing there's so much activity going on in Nanda Bhavan. Hundreds of people are cooking, hundreds of people are cleaning, everybody's running around here and they're looking very busy. So he goes to his father, Nanda Maharaj. He said, Baba, he's pulling at his kurta. Baba, what's going on? Nanda Maharaj is busy, he doesn't pay any attention. So Krishna insists. He's going on pulling his dhota. Baba, listen to me, what's going on? So finally Nanda Maharaj stops and explains that today it is our tradition, it is our Maryada to worship King Indra. And Krishna says, well, why would you do that? And very patiently Nanda Maharaj explains, Indra is in charge of rains. We are basically farmers. We depend upon rain for our livelihood. So once a year, every year, we worship Indra and we offer him all this bhoga and we do his arti. So he's pleased and he gives us sufficient amount of rains. We don't have to worry about famine, we don't have to worry about not enough crops, and we are happy. And then when there's enough rain, there's enough grass, so our cows are happy. And you know how much we love our cows. And I'm not going to go to the details of the pastimes, but you know that Krishna convinced Nanda Maharaj to not do that and instead worship whom?
Govardhan Parvat.
Govardhan Parvat. Now, let's pause for a second. Did Nanda Maharaj not know how angry Indra would be? Yes or no? Yes.
Yes, he knows.
Did he not realize the impact of the anger of Indra, how devastating it would be for their community, for their lives, for the lives of their cattle? Yes, he did. So knowing all that, he still said yes to Krishna. If that's what you want, Krishna, we will not worship. For generations we have been worshipping Indra. But tonight we will not worship Indra. Why? Because you don't want that to happen. Why will we worship Govardhan? Because you want. So what's the underlying principle? Your pleasure, my dear Krishna, is more important to me than my own life, the lives of my people, my livelihood, and the lives of my cows, whom we all love so much. They are not as important as my love for you, as my desire to see you happy. See that cute little smile on your face. For that, we will sacrifice everything. And that's the contrast in Ram Lila and Krishna Lila. In Krishna Lila, love trumps everything else, including Maryada. In Ram Lila, Maryada trumps love. Love for Ram is not as important to Krishna Dashrath as his Maryada, his tradition, his etiquette, his word of honor, the honor of his dynasty. And so to the entire pastimes of Lord Ram, that's the consistent theme. That's why he's Maryada Purushottam Ram. Okay, let me pause for a second, see if there are any questions, because then I'm going to start talking about his appearance and the events leading to his appearance. Any questions, comments, corrections, realizations? No? Okay. Everyone is awake, right?
Of
I just want
course.
to make sure, because
Yes, yes,
I have
Prabhu.
this
Yes, Prabhu.
I have this firm belief that I put people to sleep, so I always check.
Not only
I
awake,
have
they
a
are
question.
alert.
Thank
Everyone is alert hearing you.
We are listening with interest.
you.
Because
Thank
your
you.
class is very interesting, Pitashri, really. That's why everybody is quiet.
Good. Thank you, Dandamukhi. Okay. So let's
Prabhuji, I have
talk
a
about.
question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Prabhuji, you said that there are different versions, 18 authentic versions of Ramayana. And when you mentioned that Saraswati was sitting on the tongue of mantra when she, she said that. But later, I also heard in many of these lectures that she was cursed by, by Bharat later, and she was cursed by so many other people. Yeah, and if that happened, then but she was not the real culprit. That means, because otherwise all of us consider her to be the first culprit of whole thing happening. So actually, it was all plotted by the demigods.
Yeah. So you are right, but your vision is hindsight. Hindsight is 2020. Now we know, but in the Leela at that time, Bharat did not know. Shatrughna did not know. That is the plot by the demigods. They were taking it at face value. Mantra is the one who gave bad advice, so they were angry at her. As a matter of fact, I think Shatrughna, or either Bharat or Shatrughna, kicked her, which is, you don't kick a woman.
Shatrughan.
Shatrughna, thank you. And so Bharat actually chastised him, like, look, you don't kick a woman. But they were so angry. They were so angry at what Mantra had done.
And also, in lot many lectures, I heard that how mantra is considered to be the best example of bad association. And
That is also correct. That is also correct. It's the bad association that Kekai had, and therefore she ended up offending the Lord and lost devotees. Yes, that's correct.
But she was the root cause to kill Ravana, Prabhu. That way also we can
So,
take,
so
right?
once again, hindsight, right?
Yeah.
Hindsight, we know it all because we've read in the books.
Okay.
But Bharat had not read Ramayana. Right? So I mean, they were not
Prabhu.
working with the knowledge that we have now.
Prabhu, there was like,
Yeah.
so I heard in one of the lecture that the lesson we learned from this is because mantra, there is no roots of mantra anywhere mentioned. And she was actually an outsider from another kingdom. So never let a foreign person get involved in your own ministerial affairs.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I haven't heard that, but that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so,
Prabhuji,
Sonam, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Prabhuji, I have heard that Mantra was Bali Maharaj's sister in previous life. Is this true? And she came to take revenge.
I never heard that. I know that Ratnamala was the sister, and she came in Krishna Lila as Putana, but I never heard that she was Balima's sister and came as Mantra. So I don't know where you heard that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just have never heard that or read that anywhere.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
Okay, maybe later on you can let me know where you heard that. Maybe there's an authentic source.
No, actually, I was just saying that Mantra was in one of the class, I said that Mantra was victim of demigod's plan, and somebody corrected me that no, she was not a victim. She was Bali Maharaj's sister. She came to take revenge, but I was not sure of the source, so I wanted to
Okay.
confirm.
All right. So I have not heard that ever.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Sure.
I
Thank
have
you.
a quick question. It's a bit of
Hi.
it's not the main part of anything that you said.
Mhm.
So if it's a is Brahma's wife, but I thought she was his daughter.
Yeah, that's a very common confusion. So she started off as daughter of Brahma, and then there's a very infamous pastime where Brahma became lusty after her and started chasing her, and then he was laughed at by the sons of Marichi, who became the Shadgarbhas later on, and then other people also said, Brahma, what are you doing? So he stopped, and at that time he gave up his body. And he came in a new body, and at that time Saraswati was married to him and then became wife. So yeah, that is correct.
Giving body, not the real body. In his mind, he
Correct.
gave up his body,
Correct.
right?
The mentality,
So,
yes.
Yeah, so mentality. So not like he got another body.
Correct.
Auntie, you're crushing it.
No, she's very much part of it. Come on, don't get me in trouble.
No, I said that
Yeah,
he
they
gave
got
up
it.
his body.
They got
Did
it.
you hear me? So
Yeah,
I'm
they
saying like I was very confused also in the beginning that if so Brahma had another birth, but then I read that giving up body means like from mentally he gave up his
Correct.
old body, so that he was new now.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Prabhuji, I want to ask, sometimes when we explain people that Ramji and their past and his pastime with the brothers, and then they say, and then we also explain that how all the brothers are, parts and parcel from Vishnu itself. We explain to them, right, that Bharat, Shatrughan, Lakshman are non-different than Lord Ram. They are all like lotus and then conch shell and like that. They are all. But then why do you give the example of brotherhood when they are all one only? They must be they love each other like that only. Why do we need the example of brotherhood when we talk about the Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughan? So what should we explain in
Yes,
that
very
way?
very simple, Mataji. These are different expansions for the sake of pastime. So these are all pastimes of the Lord. To enjoy the pastimes, they take different forms. Just like Radha Rani and Krishna are the same, but they take separate forms for the sake of their enjoyment and do pastimes for the sake of their devotees. That's all it is.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's only one.
Yes, Prabhu. I mean, when someone asks us, like the person who doesn't understand all this, when they ask, like you are saying they are all one and they are expansions, and then we also give the example, right? That the love of the Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughan. That's the example. They have that maryada, and they set the example of the how brothers should be. So when we talk about all this to someone, then one of the person he asked me then that when they are all expansion of one particular god, like Krishna only, they are expansion of Vishnu only, then why are you saying that they are setting the example of brotherhood? They are loving, they will be loving each other because they are the expansion of one god only. So how they are setting the example?
Okay.
I mean, did you get it? What
Yeah.
the person was asking?
So let me ask you a question. If a man has 3 sons, are they considered the man's expansions or not? The sons of father, right?
Yeah.
Do the sons sometimes fight?
Yep. Yes.
Do they sometimes love? You have families where the brothers are always in love with each other. You have families where brothers are always fighting. So same thing. So they're there to set the example of loving brothers and sacrificing for each other. Again, Maryada Purushottam. They're all showing how to be the best human beings. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji. Even I was not able to, answer that. I mean, I got confused. I was like, leave it. I don't want to.
Sure.
At that time, I just thought, okay, I'll tell sometime else when I ask someone who is, who has a lot of experience like you, because I was not sure what's the answer. I was like, I don't want to give the wrong answer.
So would this answer satisfy the people who are asking you?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, good. All right.
I'll just give now, Prabhu, whenever I meet or maybe
Let me
I'll
know.
call
Okay.
and give.
Let me know.
Yes, Prabhu,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. So let's talk about Lord Ram's appearance. So basically, Darshat Maharaj suddenly found himself to be 60,000 years old with no sons. But he did have a daughter. Who knows her name? Shanta. Shanta, yes. So, right in her childhood, King Dasha's friend, or one of his friends, by the name of Rompad, who was in the nearby kingdom, a king of nearby kingdom, they were very close friends. And he said, I have no children. Would you give me your daughter to raise? And King Dashath agreed. So Shanta was raised by Rompad, King Rompad. And therefore, King Dashath was basically childless. And certainly he was very interested in having sons, because his fear was, if I don't have any sons, who will extend the dynasty, the Rahu dynasty or Shwaku dynasty, whatever you want to say. So he was very worried. So one day he was having a conversation with Vasishtha Muni, who was their Kulguru. And he said, please help me, I don't know what to do, and I'm getting very upset and despondent. I'm 60,000 years old, I don't know how much longer I have to live, and what to do. So Vasishtha was saying that let's do a fire sacrifice and that should help you. And King said, well, we have done so many fire sacrifices. None has helped, so how do I know this will help? So his prime minister, Sumantra, was listening to this conversation, and he interjected with permission, and he said, I have overheard a conversation of the Kumaras, the four Kumaras, Sanatan, Sanat Kumar, and they were saying that a time will come when King Dashrath will perform a fire sacrifice, and it's called Putra Kameshti, so with the desire to have a son. And in that fire sacrifice, if it is performed by a proper priest, then King Dashrath will have sons. So Sumantra said, bottom line is that yes, you should perform, and you're guaranteed to have son this time, but the priest has to be an appropriate priest. So King Dashrath said, well, what is the definition of appropriate priest? I mean, everybody's appropriate. As far as I know, they're all very well qualified. And Sumantra said that no, this priest has to be a priest who has never in his life associated with women. And so they said, where to find a priest like that? So they started searching. So that's one part of the story, and I'm going to wait to digress to another part of the story. So first of all, who was Dashrath? Dashrath was Kashyap and Kaushalya was Aditi. Now, in different versions of Ramayana, you also see, actually in the same Ramayana, you see other names also. So perhaps they all took turns in different kalpas to appear as Dashrath and Kaushalya. Anyway, so that's who they were. And King Dashrath was not his real name. That was the title he got. So Dash means 10, and Rath of course means chariot. So Dashrath means the one whose chariot can go in all 10 directions, which is east, west, north, south, and the four corners. So north, west, northeast, southwest, southeast, four corners, and up and down, 10 directions, which also means that he can fight with 10 charioteers at the same time who may be attacking from 10 different directions. So that, I mean, that's not an ordinary person, obviously. Rath sometimes also implies the body or the senses. So Dashrath is given, the name Dashrath is given to a person who has control over all his 10 senses. So that was also a characteristic of King Dashrath. And he ruled over a kingdom called Ayodhya. The word Ayodhya means a place where there is no war, no yuddha, or where the opposing party cannot win in a yuddha or battle. So only a person who is like Dashrath, in other words, can fight with 10 charioteers in all 10 directions and has control over his 10 senses, is eligible to rule over a kingdom called Ayodhya, where the battles don't happen or nobody from outside can win against them. So that was the name given to Dashrath. So, excuse me. So now come back to the story. So the issue then was where to find a person like that. So, curtain drops, another scene starts. King Rompad, where King Dashrath's daughter Shanta was growing up, once performed a fire sacrifice. And as the tradition is that you give in charity to all the Brahmins who were present, not just the priest who performed it, but all the Brahmins who were present. So King Rompad was giving out in charity to all these Brahmins. He came to one Brahmin and he put his hand in the bag containing these diamonds, and he noticed that there was one small diamond which was extremely valuable. So something came in his mind. He said, "Oh, this Brahmin doesn't know the values." So he took a bigger diamond and said, "Here it is for you." But the Brahmin knew what has happened. So he said, "My dear king, you have tried to cheat me. This is not good. And I'm not happy." And king tried to convince him that bigger diamond was better. And Brahmin said no. And then he got so upset, he said, "I'm leaving." And he asked all the other Brahmins to leave with him. So they all left. They actually left the kingdom of King Rompad. So now what happens when genuine Brahmins get angry? You have famine in the kingdom. So suddenly there were no rains and big famine in the kingdom of Rompad. So obviously he needs to do something. So he said, "Okay, so let's do fire sacrifice." And then somebody came and told the same thing, that no, you have to find a person who was never associated with women before. So he said, "Where would I find a person like that?" So he announced in the whole kingdom, "If anybody knows of anybody like that, come to me, there's a big reward waiting for you." So there were some dancing girls in the kingdom. They came and they said, "We don't know this person, we don't know who this is or where he is, but we'll search for him." He said, "Okay, sure, go ahead." But they said, "Well, you have to allow us to do whatever we want to do." And he said, "Sure, go ahead." So they built a ship and they traveled on that ship to different places. And finally they got to this forest where there was a saint or sage by the name of, what was his name? Vibanda.
British Ringa.
No.
Vipantaka.
Sorry, say again?
Vipandaka.
Vipandaka, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I just couldn't recall the name. Yeah, Vipandaka was there, and his story was that he was, self-realized person, always busy in chanting his mantras and doing his austerities, and he was doing such amazing austerities that Indra again got worried. Indra is always worried about his throne. Somebody does 5 sacrifices, get worried that this person after my throne. Somebody does austerities, he gets worried that he's after my throne. So he noticed Vidambaka? What was the name?
Vipandak.
Vidambak. Oh, Vipandak. Okay, Vipandak. Vipandak, what he's up to. So Indra went to Lord Brahma and said, "This guy Vipandak is after my throne and I need to disturb his meditation." And Brahma said, No, I don't think he wants your throne. Don't worry about it. And Indra said, No, I'm worried about it and you need to help me. He said, "What do you want me to do?" He said, "I want one of your apsaras to come down with me." And Lord Brahma said, "You got so many apsaras, take one of yours and do whatever you want." I said, No, I have to have yours. And he pointed at one whose name was Harsha. Harsha means happy. And so she was known for always being happy. So he said, I want her to go down and disturb his meditation, Vipandaka's meditation. And she said, look, I'm not interested. I don't want to go. Why should I bother with all this? I'm happy here. And he said, no, you have to go. She said, no, I don't want to go. He said, okay, just go and ask him if he's interested in my throne. That's all I want you to do. So he said, okay. She said, okay. So she came down and she sat down near where Vipandak was and started chanting these beautiful mantras from the Vedas. So that disturbed the attention of Vipandak, and in a positive way. So he opened his eyes and he asked her who she was, what she was doing here, that he was impressed with her knowledge. She seemed quite self-realized person. And she said, my lord, I'm here because I want to have a son with you. And he said, what are you talking about? I live in a forest. I'm away from all this. I'm busy with my meditation. Don't bother me. I'm not interested. But she insisted and insisted and insisted. So then finally he said, fine, but I don't want to associate with you. I'll give you my energy. Then you do whatever you want. So she took that, and now she's saying, what do I do with that? It's not going to help me. As she was thinking, by a lake, a deer came by and to drink water. And Harsha said, oh, this is my opportunity. So she deposited the energy in the womb of Vipandak, in the womb of the deer. And it's explained that within 2 hours, that deer gave birth to a child, which looked like a human being, but had 2 horns on the head. Hence the name Shringa. Shringa means the horns. And Rishya means a deer. So basically a human being who's born from a deer but has 2 horns. So his name became Rishya Shringa. So the deer brought this child near Vipandak again and started crying. In the meantime, Harsha had left. She went back to Brahmalok. So that again caught attention of Vipandak. And he looked at her and said, what do you want? She said, I have this child, I don't know what to do with. So he looked at the child, felt real nice fatherly, happiness, which obviously he was the father. And he picked him up and said, okay, fine, I'll raise him. She started raising him, but completely devoid of any companionship of females. There were no females in that whole forest, by the way. And it is said that not even female animals, so no sherni, no bagni, all those kind of things, no females. And raised him and taught him everything, and he became quite self-realized, and he was growing up. So these women showed up there, and they were dressed as rishis. And so Rishi Shringa doesn't know the difference between man and woman. He had never seen a woman before. So he thinks, okay, they are sages also, and they start talking, not like self-realized people. So now he starts to associate with them. But every time he sits with them, talks to them, if by any chance he touches them, he feels there's something different about these sages that no other sages had. And then soon he's hugging them, and there's like electricity flowing through his body, saying, something doesn't make sense. What is this that I feel that I've never felt before? So the girls were basically, throwing their net at him slowly. Then one day he brought some roots and fruits to offer to them. And they said, what is this? We don't like the taste of this. You want the real fruits? Here. And they took out some gulab jamun, some rasgulla, and some rasmalai and offered him. So he ate them and he said, my God, these are very tasty fruits. Where do you get them? And they said, this lot of these trees where we come from. So you want them? Come with us. It just so happened that his father was not there that day. So he said, okay, fine. He boarded the ship with them and went back to where the kingdom of Rompad. And as soon as he landed there, the rains started. So King Rompad knew that whoever this person is a very powerful person. He came to welcome him, and he met him, and after a very brief conversation, he offered him his daughter Shanta in marriage. Just one second. My PC is acting strange. It's going dim on me. I hope it doesn't die. Anyway, so then somebody said that that's the person that you need to bring to perform this fire sacrifice, because he had not associated with women until this point in time. So he came, and so basically he was the son-in-law of Dashrath, kind of indirectly, but he was. So he performed the fire sacrifice, Putra Kameshti, the fire sacrifice with the desire to have a son. And then finally, the fire god appeared. Some say that it was Yajna Purush who appeared, doesn't matter. A big pot in his hand. And he said, my dear king, you offer this kheer, wheat rice, to your queens, and you will have children. You'll have sons. So king was very happy. He took it, and he went to the inner chamber where the queens resided, and he divided the pot into two halves. And he gave one half to Kaushalya, and then he divided the other half into two halves, so 1/4. He gave 1/4 to Kaikeyi, and then he took the other quarter, divided again into half, and he put it in the hands of Kaikeyi and Kaushalya and said, whatever you want to do. So they took that 1/8, the two parts, and gave both to Sumitra. So Kaushalya had half the pot, Kaikeyi had 1/4 of the pot, and Sumitra had 2 1/8, which is also 1/4, but two separately. So Kaushalya had Lord Ram, Kaikeyi had Bharat, and Sumitra had Lakshman and Shatrughan. Yeah. So the pot that Kaushalya had given, that resulted in the birth of Lakshman. The pot that Kaikeyi had given to Sumitra, that gave birth to Shatrughan. Okay, so now it's important to know that. But now, what was I going to say? There was some point I wanted to make. I'm trying to remember. Yes. So in time, Ram, Bharat, Lakshman, Shatrughan were born. So I have a question for you. What do you think was the age difference between Ram, Bharat, Lakshman, and Shatrughan?
No, none.
Well, I mean, they were Ram was the oldest, Shatrughan was the youngest. Bharat was in the middle, and then Lakshman was younger than Bharat. So if no difference, then it cannot be younger. The concept of younger and older. So there must be some difference, but the question is how much? So the answer is few minutes, literally few
1
minutes.
minute or
Yeah, I don't know exactly 1 minute or 3 minutes, I don't know, but literally few minutes. But still, that made the difference of the older and younger and the youngest. So it was not like the few years difference or anything like that, which is the other amazing part. Like I'm older by a few minutes to you, then therefore I'm the older one. I'm like father. And my wife is like mother to you. I mean, that was the Maryada at that time. I mean, really amazing, right? Okay, anyway, so they appeared. Now I want to talk a little bit about their date, time, etc. of appearance. So they appear, Lord Ram appeared in what is called as Madhu Mas. And the significance is that the taste of his devotional service unto him, I mean, is like honey. So devotees can taste the honey of his devotional service. The second point was that he appeared on 9th day of the moon, Navmi. And that's also the reason is this particular Maryada about that date. And how we understand that is that it is said that if for some uncontrollable reason you miss your Ekadashi, then you could do it on Dwadashi. Only if it was not deliberately done. It's not like I have a birthday party to go to. Today is Ekadashi, so I'll forget today. I'll have a good time and then Dwadashi I'll keep the fast. Not that. But if for whatever reason just couldn't, then you can do it next day. Similarly, other fasts also, if you were supposed to do it on the first day of the moon, you couldn't, you could do it on second you could do third. But if it's on the 9th day, you cannot do the fast on the 10th day. Why? Anybody knows? Anybody wants to guess?
After that, Ekadashi, so you have to
Because
do fast on Ekadashi day, so you cannot
Right.
do.
So my wife is answering it. She's saying that if you fast on the 10th day, Dashmi, then when do you break it? Next day is Ekadashi, you have to fast.
Yeah.
So you cannot break. Therefore, you cannot fast on the 10th. Therefore, you cannot break your fast on the 9th. So Ram Navami is when you have to fast. You can't say this or that and therefore do it on the 10th day. You can't do that. So there's Maryada of that day. There was also a lecture I was listening to from Sarvam Prabhu. He was saying that the 9th day of the moon is considered Rikta. Rikta means empty, nothing in it. It's considered inauspicious. So no marriages, no auspicious ceremonies happen on the 9th day of the moon. So one time, 9th day personified complained to Sita and Ram saying, this is not fair. Nobody cares for me. Nobody appreciates me. Nobody does anything auspicious on my day. Look at me. I'm so thin because I'm not cared for. So they said, don't worry. Ram said, I will appear on 9th day of the moon. And Mother Sita said, you know what? I will also appear on 9th day of the moon. So both Sita Jayanti and Ram Jayanti are on 9th day of the moon. It's Navami. So that's again the Maryada of the day. Then within the day is what's called Muhurta. So you all had heard Brahma Muhurta, right? Yeah. So what does Muhurta mean? What's the duration of Muhurta? Anybody knows the duration?
5 o'clock morning time.
Yes, 48 minutes. Right? So 48 minutes is the duration. So Lord Ram was appeared in what's called an Abhijit Muhurta. Abhijit means the victory. So anybody who appears in that Muhurta is always victorious. So Lord Ram appeared in that Muhurta to signify his future pastime that he'll always be victorious against anyone, including Ravan. Okay? And anybody who helps Lord Ram, like the monkeys and the bears, they will also be victorious all the time. Right? So Muhurta is important because it determines what is auspicious and what is inauspicious. And some people in India are very particular about it. And I'll tell you my own family, my personal story. When I was coming to Canada, my flight was on a day that was inauspicious, very inauspicious. And the day before that was also, I don't remember why, was also considered very inauspicious. So therefore I could not leave my home to catch a plane on those 2 days. So I had to leave home 2 days before my flight. And I stayed at a friend's house. So I did they call prasthan, which means the departure ceremony from the house. So all that was performed 2 days before. And I stayed for 2 days at my friend's house before I went to take the flight from the airport. So Muhurta is considered very, very important. And people worry about what's auspicious, what's inauspicious. Nobody travels on the 9th day of the moon and all those kind of things. Those who observe this. Anyway, and there's a related story in the pastime of Lord Ram. You've all heard the story of Jatayu. But here's a point that you may not have heard. So we all know that Ravan came, he kidnapped Mother Sita, and he was flying away in his chariot. Jatayu, who was a vulture or an eagle, he was the king of the forest. I'm trying to remember the name of the forest. Anyway, of the forest, and for 10,000 years, and he actually ruled over all the animals, not just birds, all the animals in the forest for 10,000 years. Anyway, so he was also a personal friend of King Dashrath. So he was, I'm sorry?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, yes?
I have a small question here.
I'm sorry?
I have a question.
Yeah, question. Go ahead, please. Yeah. Can you put your video on, please? Thank you. Yes, Mataji. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, you said Lord Ram and Sita Devi born on same day.
Sorry?
Lord Ram and Sita Devi are born on same day.
Same muhurta? No, no, they were not born on same muhurta,
day.
but not same muhurta, but same day of the moon. So on Navami day, they were both born, but not on the same muhurta. I don't know which muhurta she was born in, but it was not Abhijit muhurta.
It's not on the same Navami.
Same day, yeah. Same day of the moon, not same date. There was age difference,
Okay.
but the day of the moon was same. 9th day of the moon, Navami. I don't know if I'm answering your
Okay,
question.
Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
I'm
Yes,
answering your
Prabhu.
question?
Thank you.
Yes, okay. All
Yes,
right.
Prabhu. I saw in the Vaishnava calendar that Sita Devi appearance day is May 21st.
Okay, no, that's English calendar. I'm going by the lunar calendar, moon calendar. It's the 9th
Okay.
day of the
Thank you
moon.
so much, Prabhu.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Okay, so as he was kidnapping her, she was crying for help. She was crying out to all the animals, all the birds and people, see Ravana is taking me away, help me. So Jatayu heard her cry. And he saw. And he recognized who she was. So a vulture who's very, very old, like more than 10,000 years old, started to fight with Ravan, who was much younger. This vulture had one head, Ravan had 10. This vulture had no arms. Ravan had 20. Ravan had weapons. All he had was his feathers, that's it, and his beak and his claws, that's it. So he said, I don't care. He started fighting. And he was actually quite brave, and not only quite brave, quite strong. He gave Ravan a very good fight. And he almost destroyed the chariot. Someplace I heard that he actually even killed the chariot driver, and he injured the horses and all that. But Ravan was able to take his sword out and chop off his feathers and really cut part of his beak and really injured the rest of his body very badly, to the point where when his feathers were cut off, he fell down on the ground. And Ravan was on his way. Lord Ram and Lakshman were looking for Sita, and they saw this strange looking body on the ground with a lot of blood around. So they went there and they saw this was a vulture. And they asked him what happened and what he was doing there. So he introduced himself. He said, my name is Jatayu, and I saw your wife Sita being kidnapped by Ravan, and so I fought with him, but I'm very sorry. I apologize to you that I was not able to save Sita. I was not able to keep Ravan from taking her away. So I'm very, very sorry. Please forgive me, but I did my best. And Lord Ram said, you are about to give up your life for me. What more can I ever ask anyone? And so at that time, Jatayu introduced himself. He said, I'm actually a friend of your father, and he talked about all that. And he said, I'm again very, very sorry I couldn't do this. So Lord Ram said, you've done more than I can ask you for, but I have a question for you. And he said, you couldn't have won against Ravan. You couldn't have stopped Ravan. Then why did you even bother fighting? This was a lost case. Lost cause, I should say. And Jatayu said, my lord, I knew I cannot stop Ravan. I knew I have no weapons, and he will take his sword, he'll cut off my feathers, because he knows that's the only way I can fly. I knew he will injure me because he's way stronger than I am. I was not fighting with him to stop him from taking Sita. I knew that I couldn't do that. And Ram said, then why? He said, I was simply trying to delay Rama's departure. Why? Because he was taking her away at a muhurta called Vindhya Muhurta, which is a very auspicious muhurta where whatever you decide to do, you are successful in doing that. The next muhurta I knew is called Punarvasu Muhurta. Punarvasu Muhurta is an inauspicious muhurta. Whatever you try to do comes back and you're not successful. So I was simply trying to delay Ravan by 48 minutes. That's all I was trying to do. Fight him long enough to keep him in this place for 48 minutes so the muhurta changes from Vindhya to Punarvasu. It's inauspicious and it guarantees the return of the person you kidnapping. So that's all I was trying to do, knowing that I will die. So my dear Lord Ram, that was my service to you, to ensure that Sita will be returned to you. And saying that, he gave up his life in the arms of Lord Ram. Lord Ram actually cried. He actually cried. And he performed the last rites of this bird, Jatayu, as a reward for his service to him. Okay. I'm going to, it's 9:26, so I have to stop. I got lots more, obviously. But I'm going to stop by just saying that the love between Lord Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrugna, as babies, as babies, they were crying a lot. So an experiment was done. Bharat and Shatrugna, Lakshman and Shatrugna being the brothers, were put in one crib, and I'm not saying this right. Ram and Bharat, yes, that's right. Ram and Bharat were put in one crib, and Lakshman and Shatrugna being the twins or whatever, one mother, were put in a separate crib. But they did not stop crying. So they switched again. Now they put Ram and Lakshman in one crib, and Bharat and Shatrugna in another crib. As soon as they did that, they stopped crying, indicating that Lakshman would be always serving Ram and Shatrugna would be serving Bharat. Which brings me to the point where the naming ceremony had happened. So Vasishtha Muni was, just like Garg Muni was the one who gave the name of Krishna and Balaram, Vasishtha Muni was the one they went to for the naming ceremony. And he said that the oldest child is going to give pleasure to everyone. Therefore, his name is Ram. He said, your second one is going to nourish and maintain all the subjects in his kingdom. Therefore, his name is Bharat. The third one is going to serve his eldest brother by his own will and in more ways than you can even imagine, non-stop. Therefore, his name is going to be Lakshman. And the youngest one, even if you just meditate upon his name, all your enemies will be killed. Therefore, his name is Shatrugna. Which is kind of ironic also because there was only one person Shatrugna killed in his entire pastime. Does anybody know the name of the person Shatrugna killed? Lavanasur, yes. I got my expert sitting right here, so she answers all the questions. So he killed only one demon, Lavanasur, right? But his name was Shatrugna, but that's to imply that we meditate upon him and all our enemies are killed. I mean, symbolically speaking, not literally, symbolically speaking. Anyway, so Lakshman's service was so amazing that after they got married, Lakshman continued to do all the services for Ram, even the services that Mother Sita is supposed to do. And after a while, she got really upset that I cannot serve my husband because my Devar, my brother-in-law, is doing everything. So she complained to Vasishtha Muni that, you need to help me. What is this? I am not able to serve my own husband. So he called Ram and Lakshman and Sita together and said, okay, Lakshman, from now on, you do all the service for your brother outside of the palace. Inside the palace, let his wife Sita do the service. So that was the division of labor, of service. So then from then on, Sita was doing the service of Ram inside the palace, and outside it was all Lakshman. I'm sorry, it's 9:30, so I need to stop for any questions you have. Somebody sent a chat if you want to do a part 2. Again, that's up to you. You're the boss, I'm the servant. So if you decide you want a part 2, we'll do it. Otherwise, we'll move on with the rest of the etiquette. I'm sorry? Okay. Yeah. Any questions or comments?
Comments, yes, Prabhu. The
Yes.
Jatayu story, Ramayana, we heard many times, but today the exact way to stop the muhurta, that's the first time I'm hearing today, Prabhu. Thank you for the clarity.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mother.
सीता माता को वहीं रहने देना है रावण के पास.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Mataji, you're saying? Sudevi Mataji, you're saying?
सीता माता जी को वापस नहीं लेकर आना.
सीता माताजी वापस
नहीं लेके आना.
वापस लेके आना.
No, you stopped at part 1, right? So Sita Mata has been kidnapped. She should
Oh,
come
I
back
see.
to part
Okay.
2.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah, I got it. Okay. Any other questions?
Prabhu?
So we can have Prabhuji. That's what she means.
Okay. So I have a comment here. Part 2, yes, and also cover Hanumanji pastimes. Okay. Rukmini Sudha, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji, I have a question. Like we read in Bhagavatam that lifespan of people in Treta Yuga was like 10,000 years.
I'm sorry, can you start again, please? I'm sorry. So, Rukmini, can you start again?
Prabhuji, as we read in Bhagavatam that lifespan of people in Treta Yuga was 10,000 years. And we read in Ramayana that Lord Ramchandra, he ruled for around 11,000 years. And Dashrath Maharaj ruled for around 60,000 years. So how we can understand this thing?
Yeah. Did you ever study a subject called statistics? No? That's okay. So there's something called average. So let me ask you a question. Okay, it's totally out of context. Let me ask a question anyway. Suppose you're standing by a river and you want to go to the other side of the river. And I don't know what your height is, but let's say 5'5". Yes, let's say you're 5'5" inches tall. I don't know how tall you are, but it doesn't matter. Let's say you're 5'5" inches tall. And there's no boat, but you really need to cross. And you're sitting there crying what to do. A man comes over and says, "What's the problem, my child?" And you say, "My problem is I want to cross, but there's no boat." And he says, "How tall are you?" You say, 5'5" inches. He said, "Don't worry. The average depth of this river is only 4'6" inches. You're 5'5", so you're fine. Just go cross over." And you say, okay, great. And you start crossing. Is there any danger there? Okay, anybody who understands the concept of averages? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji, because at some point it could be deeper than 5.
Right,
Figure
exactly.
you
So
said.
the river could be 2 feet deep, 3 foot deep, 9 foot deep, 4 foot deep, on and, but the average is only 4'6" inches. But it doesn't mean at no point in time it's more than 5'5". Right? So the point of my story is that yes, the average lifespan of Treta Yuga was 10,000 years. Just like in Sat Yuga, it was 100,000 years. But we know many stories of people who lived for millions of years, like Manus. They lived 75 million years plus. Right? Similarly, Treta Yuga, many people lived a lot more than 10,000 years, including King Dashrath, you said. And yes, Lord Ram, actually, I read that he performed 5 sacrifices for 13,000 years. After Sita Ji was gone, yes. So, yeah, so I mean, they lived a lot longer than that. But yes, means that some people did not live 10,000 years. It's like in age of Kali. What's the average age considered?
100.
Well, 100 is in the scriptures only. Like, how many people did you know who lived till 100?
The average 70.
So now, that's right. The statistical average these days in Canada is the average lifespan is 77 years for men and 80 years for women. But we know, unfortunately, so many people who die at 40, 50, 60, right? So, point being, we talk about averages doesn't mean everybody's only that. Right? It's like the average height of a Canadian girl is 5'7". But I know many girls who are not even 5'2". Right? And I know some girls who are 6 foot more or more. but the average is 5'7". Right? So, look, Visuddha, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Does it answer your question? Rukmini Sudha?
Yes, Prabhuji, it answers my question.
Okay, all
Thank
right.
you.
Good. Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, one question, Prabhu.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
So, Prabhu, when we say like in Krishna Lila, when Swam Bhagwan came, that means that is Sham Sundar Bhagwan, not one of those four, right? Who came? I'm just confirming.
So, Prabhu, in Vrindavan, it was Swam Bhagwan Krishna, who never leaves Vrindavan. The personalities that left Vrindavan to go to Mathura were Vasudev Krishna and Sankarshan Balram. The two that you saw. Okay?
Yes.
So, in Dwarka and Mathura, it was Vasudev Krishna, not Shyam Sundar Krishna, not Swayam Krishna. Okay? And similarly, not Balram, not Swayam Balram, but his expansion, Sankarshan, the quadruple expansion.
Yes, okay.
Right?
And then Swam Bhagwan and Balram, they remained in Vrindavan. Like
correct. They never leave Vrindavan.
They never lived. Okay. And then those four personalities which you were saying were in Ram Lila and Dwarka Lila. So who were those four in Dwarka Lila?
Pradyumna and Anirudh. Son of Lord Krishna was Pradyumna, and son of Pradyumna was Anirudh.
Anirudh, okay. Yeah.
So they didn't even change their name in Dwarka Lila, but in Ram
Dwarka
Lila
Lila
they did.
didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure. Anyone else?
Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I have. Oh, sorry, Mataji. Please continue.
Thank you. Just want to check. I mean, a lot of people talk about kids of Sri Ramchandra, and he had given up his wife after Dhobi said something about it. Oh, where was the Maryada for taking care of the kids and all?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, Madhavi. Where was the Maryada in giving up his wife? Knowing that she's pregnant.
Knowing that she's loyal also.
Well, absolutely. He knows the whole truth. And this is where again the Maryada trumps love situation. So now he was doing actually, you know what? I'm going to answer your question right now. But if I'm doing part 2, if that's what you want, then I'll cover a lot of points like this, that Maryada. But anyway, let me answer your question. So he had a Maryada of a king. The Maryada of the king was that he would personally go and find out what his subjects are thinking and ensure that they're happy. So Lord Ram used to, after he became the king, used to go out in disguise and roam around the streets of Ayodhya, listening to different conversations to gauge the mood of the subjects. He didn't even depend upon his servants to tell him what people are thinking. He wanted to know for himself. And one day, as you know, he was passing by the house of a washerman whose wife had spent a night somewhere, don't know the reasons, and he was accusing her of being unfaithful, disloyal to him. And he said, I will not keep you in my house. And then he said, I'm not like Raja Ram, King Ram, that my wife can spend 1 year with somebody else and I still accept her. I will not do that. That brings infamy to me, my family, and my kingdom. So Lord Ram heard that. He said, I need to honor this subject's consideration, and therefore I will also give up my wife. So once again, Maryada of the king trumped the love of a husband for his wife. Maryada of the king trumped the truth of the matter. Truth of the matter was that Ravan did not even kidnap real Sita.
Yep.
Just before
punishing the
Ravan
innocent for that, punishing the innocent for the Maryada.
That's correct. That's the whole point. That for Lord Ram in that pastime, Maryada trumped anything and everything. And that's the major difference between pastimes. I mean, if Lord Krishna was there, he would have said, I don't care what you say, I'm not giving up Radha. Forget it.
That's what I would have done.
Well, there you go. You're a Krishna devotee then. Right? So, yeah. So, I mean, it's the mood in which they're coming. You know, and Mother Sita, Mother Sita is also doing her pastimes, right? So she also knows what's going on. There was nothing personal. But for the sake of pastimes, you go through all that.
But I felt very bad about that.
Lot of people feel very
Hearing
bad.
her.
Lot of people feel very bad. But then again, understand also this thing. If this had not happened, if they had not lived with Valmiki Muni, if Lavan Kush had not been brought up by Valmiki Muni and told the entire story and then encouraged to go and chant this in Ayodhya, how would the rest of the people have found out the truth? Right? So, I mean, it's not straightforward. Krishna's way or Lord Ram's way are so complicated. It's hard for us insignificant mortals to understand. Right?
So which way you suggest one should live?
I'm sorry, Mataji?
Which way you suggest one should live? The Krishna way or the Rama way?
Well,
or the combination of two?
So, once again, our problem is we're not pure. We are so bound by our conditioned ways. We are so bound by the rules of the society that we end up doing what the society demands us to do. So that's why we are chained. We are bound. So we don't have a lot of choices in what we do. Right? We are not Lord Ram above the law of the society. We're not Lord Krishna above the laws of society. We are bound by those laws. You know, that's the unfortunate situation we are in. So we do what the society demands us to do. And those of us who don't are criticized to no end. Right? And we know this in practical life. We know people, or we may know people, who knowingly that their wife or their husband has been disloyal, stay. Many, many examples of that. And we know people who sometimes divorce an innocent wife or husband because they believe what may not be true, but they believe that. So both things happen. That's the material world. That's the age of Kali. I mean, I'm sure every one of you either knows or has heard of a couple who's staying together because of kids or because what will people say and all those kind of things, even though it's not a good marriage for many different reasons. And we also have heard of or may know people who got divorced for no good reason. Right? But that's Kali Yuga, that's the material world, and that's us conditioned souls.
But that's the ideal people or ideal mortals we have in our scriptures that we want to follow. So we're just talking about it, or are we going to implement something in our life also?
No, so right. So don't try to be Ram and don't try to be Krishna. Try to be a devotee of Krishna, to follow the footsteps of the devotees of Krishna or devotees of Ram. You never read in a scripture saying, follow in the footsteps of Krishna, follow in the footsteps of Ram. You always read and hear, follow in the footsteps of the devotees of Krishna now. Is that not true?
Yeah, that's the right answer.
Right? So follow in the footsteps of the devotees. What would a devotee do? Right?
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else? All right, then we'll stop. And did I understand correctly that everyone wants a part 2, or we're okay to move with the rest of the 8th?
Yes.
Prabhuji, we want part 2.
Part two.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. And is there anything in particular, or can I just decide, or stay on the theme of Maryada and just do the pastimes? Oh, thank you. Thank you. And there was a request to talk about some pastimes of Lord Hanuman, so we can do that also. We can add as part of the same theme. Okay. All right then. Thank you so much, every one of you, for your kind attention. Always enjoy sharing time with you. And
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vancha
Hare Krishna.
kalpa Jai.
Hare
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki
Thank you,
jai.
Prabhu. Thank you again for the wonderful class.
So nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare
Guru ki
Krishna.
jai. Shiksha Guru ki jai.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.